Coming to you from across the multiverse, this is the Marvel Infinity Rewatch Podcast. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on the Marvel Infinity Rewatch Podcast, where we are rewatching the most successful movie franchise in history from the very beginning. This week, we'll try to keep our heart rate in check and avoid becoming a green rage monster with the Incredible Hulk. Joining me to discuss this film is Joe from the YouTube channel Muscles in the Multiverse. And I also might add, an MCU super fan. Joe, how you doing? And welcome to the podcast.
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. It's been, I don't think the last time it's the last time I saw this was like in college, so it's been a while.
It's been a hot minute for a lot of people, I suspect. And I think that us rewatching it may have given us a little more perspective on this movie, which I think has been unfairly sort of I don't want to say reviled. That's not true, but it's been kind of pushed to the side. People forget that it's even in the MCU, and that's kind of ridiculous. So hopefully, this rewatch will get everyone to realize that they should put a little bit more respect on Bruce Banner's name. That's all I'm saying. This movie, The Incredible Hulk, came out in 2008. It came out only a couple months after the first Iron Man, believe it or not. Directed by Louis Leterrier from a screenplay by Zach Penn. And it stars Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. Also, Liv Tyler, Tim Roth, William Hurt, rest in peace, and Tim Blake Nelson. It's the second movie in phase one of the MCU. And it had small but significant ties to Iron Man, and also a callback to the post-credit scene or mid-credit scene of Iron Man 1, as you'll see later on in the movie, because Ross is in that post-credit scene. But so it kind of expanded, like as the second movie in the MCU, it kind of expanded what was at the time a very small, nascent universe, a cinematic universe. They didn't even call it the Marvel Cinematic Universe at the time. Feige called it the Marvel Cinema Universe. So it wasn't even what we call it today. Not really. But it did make people expect more connections to the future movies. Joe, let everyone know, what was this movie about even?
All right, I'm gonna give a. I saw this funny thing. We'll try it out here, but then I'll give a real one. But basically, a guy tries to keep his heart rate down so he doesn't get all big and green, and spends the entire movie trying to find a cure. That's the very brief
Yeah,
synopsis.
pretty much. Yeah.
But we have Bruce Banner. He's poisoned with gamma radiation during an experiment gone wrong. And basically, he spends the rest of his time hiding away because the military is trying to find him because they want to basically utilize him as a weapon slash what he did to himself and weaponize that. This whole time while he's been avoiding the military, he's trying to find a cure, and he's been talking with, um, at least at the beginning part of the movie, who we don't know who it is. It's Mr. Blue. Um, and basically, he's basically working on creating an antidote. Eventually, Banner returns back to America, meets up with his old lover, Betty Ross, who just, of course, happens to be the daughter of the man who is trying to find Bruce Banner.
Right. And is
um,
totally not using his resources to get back at his daughter's ex. I'm just saying.
no, that is correct. um, and then we basically get Emil Blonsky, who is this British covert ops guy who is working with Roth, who eventually turns into the Abomination. And basically, at that point, we get lots of fights, and then everyone kind of, for lack of a better term, goes their separate ways for the time being.
Right. Yeah. Lots of explosions and unnecessary collateral damage, aka literally anytime the Hulk does anything. I don't think the Hulk can use the bathroom without collateral damage.
I
That's
can't imagine.
probably not. That movie, yeah, it's the Hulk story, right? And by the way, and I want to
Yep.
note, it's also a Hulk story that had to dig out of a hole that Ang Lee's Hulk made, in my opinion. It's just me. I didn't like the Ang Lee Hulk. And having recently rewatched it, ugh. So this really had a lot of work to do, and I had high hopes for it. What's good, what's bad, and what's weird about these movies? So, for the good, what do you think was good about it?
So on this rewatch, as I was like taking notes and watching it, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I don't think the CGI is that bad. When we look at honestly some of the like CGI that we've seen in more recent Marvel movies for other reasons of why it wasn't so good, I'm like, this is better than that. Um, like the first thing that comes to my mind is like I can't even think of his name right now, but in Thor: Love and Thunder, when they have the little boy's face show up, um,
Oh,
I can't I can't
yeah,
remember his
yeah,
name.
Heimdall's son. Yeah, I forget his name,
Yeah,
but yes.
yep. Even the fight between Agatha and Wanda at the end of WandaVision, like that CGI was not
Yeah.
done so great in my opinion. And I'm like, this isn't bad. Like Hulk looks pretty good, Abomination looks pretty good. They've done a good job during the fights. Um, I mean, if you like action, also the ending fight scene I thought was pretty good
Mhm. Yeah.
between Hulk and Abomination. Honestly, um, like you said though, just a lot of action. A lot of times I felt like it was just a very classic old school like 80s or 90s sci-fi movie you would turn on
Mhm.
again when you were in college and you're just like, yeah, I'll just turn this on and it's just ridiculous. Ridiculous kind of like almost to the Expendables, not like in terms of stunts, but just like ridiculous stuff that happens.
Yeah. Well, and it also, I feel like it calls back to that classic, Stanley, was it, I forget, was Kirby helped? Did he help
Yeah.
design him? So
Yeah, yeah.
the Lee and Kirby Hulk, there was a lot of that smashing punch up stuff. Like because of how quickly they had to turn things around. There's a lot of bombastic action, in the Silver Age Marvel comics. So it really felt like a throwback to that in a good way. To me, I love those comics.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's a really great hero origin story, and especially because they fast forwarded through the whole. Oh, how did he become Hulk? They did the Batman thing. They're like, all right, we know, yeah, yeah, their parents died or whatever. Yeah, he got gamma radiation, blah blah blah. Let's get on to like the story to where he's now he's looking for a cure. It's not just how did this happen. So I love that they fast forward through that. I love that they focused on Bruce's character. Bruce, not we'll get Hulk later. We need to see Bruce who he is as a person. He's resourceful. He is. He's downtrodden, but he still has a purpose. He looks out for the common man, that sort of thing. He is innately a hero. He can't turn away while somebody is hurting or in trouble or whatever. And I really did love the fact that they focused in on him as a character before they proceeded towards all of the action. I wanted to know that this was, a character that I needed to care about, and they made me care about him. What about your bad?
The bad. I think some of this was just like me paying attention now that I'm like watching more stuff and I'm just like noticing these things. Probably a long time ago I wouldn't have, but like in one of the first scenes when he's still in Brazil and they basically Ross finally finds out that he's there and they send a team in to go get
Hmm.
him. It starts out at night. Just like the timing of filming. It's so obvious though. It's so bad. It's like it starts out at night and then it's like dusk and then it's like daytime and then it's back to nighttime again. And I'm like,
Was
I get it, but like, man, come on. Let's at least make this a little bit better. Um, just like some continuity stuff, honestly, like for me again was like after he left Brazil, he ended up in Guatemala.
right?
All he had bought were these big stretchy pants from like a vendor
Mm.
from some lady in Guatemala. And then the next thing you know, he's making his way to the US.
Yeah.
And I
Well, I
mean,
mean, that's how Doctor
yeah,
Banner.
that's I
I
mean,
mean, I
That's how he
mean,
works. But
I like to say he looked like every white tourist ever. Like in when he was in Brazil, I was like, "Wow, you really look like you don't belong here, my. You look like you're like, you got your little dictionary. Like, how do I say,
yep,
street? But no, but
yeah,
he's super resourceful. He speaks other people's
he is.
languages.
Yep.
Um, and I actually thought that was very interesting that he made his way to America, and despite the Trump's wall and everything like that, he managed to get across, despite immigration. Oh, great, good for you, Dr. Banner. Uh,
That's it.
for me, the bad. Now I'm going opposite of you. The VFX, particularly the Hulks, the Abomination and Hulk, I was like, I'm looking at a video game right now. He's so shiny. I'm like, why are you shiny? It's dry out. It's no rain. The rain didn't even start. You look so shiny, man. Your reflections are crazy. I felt like I was playing an Xbox game, basically. That level of CG, which it wasn't terrible. It's just like it's noticeable. It's just noticeable to me. So the weird. What did you think was weird about this movie?
I feel like the weirdest part was just like Emil Blonsky to me. I mean, I realize that he's just a character, but like he just comes out of nowhere. And I get like he's a very high level advanced covert ops guy that they needed to help figure out what was going on with Banner and take him down. But like he has no other reasoning as to why he wants the things that he wants, right? It's just like,
Well, yeah.
why? Like, I mean, I
He
get it, and I understand that that's what it is, but I'm just like, I wish we got maybe just a tad bit more. Besides the fact that he's just like, I want to be younger again and know all the
Yeah,
things that I did,
it's
and that was it.
basic. That's basically it. I mean,
Yep.
his whole reason to be there was, how can we give Hulk a challenge without? Let's just make another Hulk. Okay, let's make another. Which canonically in the comics,
Yep.
he exists. I'm not saying
Yep.
he doesn't exist, but that's
No.
just like Hulk he's got the Superman problem. Who can fight Superman for real? You can't have very
No.
bad guys because they have to be powerful. I did like Blonsky in the sense that I understood his reasoning. He's an old horse that's about to be put out to pasture, and suddenly he sees a pathway towards, not just being himself again, but being better than he ever was. He sees that power and he wants it for himself. So I have an understanding, especially as a person that's getting older, of like, man, sure would be nice to be 20 again. He's like, oh, it sure would be nice to be 20 and also be able to leap 3 states at one shot. That'd be dope too. So I get it. How does this fit into the MCU in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like you said, it does a really it's the origin story for Hulk for the most part, right? And I feel
Hmm.
like they're setting the scene for all of this. So obviously we learn a little bit more, like you said, about who Bruce Banner is himself as a person and kind of again, most people know his actual like how he got his powers, but obviously we get to see that in the opening credits. Um, it also establishes a lot of things that didn't happen until much later, right? We got Emil Blonsky as Abomination, who we
Hmm.
didn't see until, well, a one shot, but then mainly in She Hulk,
Right.
which was significantly a lot later within the timeline, basically. Um, we haven't seen her much, I don't think, but Betty Ross, I mean, maybe we'll see
Hmm.
her in Captain America. Um, and then obviously Thunderbolt Ross, who is now making his return in a couple of months in Brave New World.
Right.
So I think setting all of that up, but clearly Hulk is a big player in terms of the Avengers, right? Even though we didn't get that continued actor of Edward Norton, but
Hmm.
obviously the character still continued on.
Right. Uh, yeah, I mean I agree with you. We needed to get the Hulk because if the idea here, especially before getting the X-Men back, before getting Fantastic Four, you don't have Spider-Man. These are some major characters that people in the world know. And they know Hulk, but you've got to kind of establish, where he's from, where he's going as the MCU unfolds. So yeah, giving him not necessarily an origin story, but giving him a reason for being in the MCU. makes sense, and tying him to Iron Man, which prior to this coming out, made a huge splash. Like remember it was huge at the time. So they really kind of strongly wanted to tie him in. So the idea of a Hulk running around and expanding this universe made a lot of sense. Especially, now you bring Tony Stark in, you bring Shield in. This is a movie that established Shield. We sort of saw a little bit of it at the end of Iron Man, but this is like no, Shield is a thing, right? To the point where they're tracking people with powers and stuff like that. So it's important. Like this movie is doing a lot of groundwork, and people do not give it the credit or the respect it deserves for doing it. So, do you remember the first time you watched this?
Yeah, so like I said, it was probably in college for I think it was basically we had a TV station just on campus that you could get that was just movies that would
Right.
just play. And a lot of the times they were recently movies that were recently out in theaters,
Hmm.
but still not out on, physical media yet.
Okay. Oh,
um,
let's pause for a second for any young people who may be watching or listening. So, TV was a thing where you couldn't choose what you watched. Someone else chose it for you, and then you just sat down and watched whatever the hell it was. So just like think about when you go to your grandparents' house and they have cable. That's what we're talking about. Anyway, go. You were
yep.
saying.
No, it's so true. We had a little scrolling thing on that channel or another channel of like what the movies were and what times they were playing. So that's what you would figure out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time that I watched it. Was in college,
Did you watch it with like a group of people, or was it just like just you?
no, I feel like it was probably like one of those things where maybe like my roommate and me watched some bits of it,
Mm,
and then at other times it was just me, just hanging out. I vaguely remember this was like probably freshman year in college. So um, yeah,
yeah.
that's what I remember most.
I swear that this I put this question on here to see if people have strong attachment or memories to this. I don't. I remember going to see. I went to see this like when it opened up, like probably opening day, which was a Friday back then. So I do remember going to see it. I went with my ex-wife who was pregnant with my daughter. So my daughter and this movie and Iron Man are the same age, basically. 16 years, surprise. So I remember
Yeah.
going to see it. This was in the aftermath of Iron Man, as I mentioned before, which was huge. Everyone loved Iron Man. So more Marvel stuff, they were promising, like very, loudly in the media and everything, that they were going to make this MCU. And I liked the movie. In fact, I probably loved it at the time, just for washing the taste of Ang Lee's Hulk out of my mouth. Uh, and and I do recall, because there's so much action and stuff in this. Uh, I recall the audience being very receptive to this. You gotta remembering that the normies, so to speak, they don't know. All they know is green dude jumping around punching shit, and maybe they remembered some vaguely about some TV show or something like that. So it definitely did get a very good reception, and it was very enjoyable. I remember that. What's your standout scene? What the scene that really like captured you the most? I guess you could say.
But I think still for me, honestly, it was probably the ending fight scene between Abomination and Hulk. I felt like
Hmm.
nothing was really drug out too long. It was done really well. Probably, you know, it's been a while since I've rewatched most of these movies from first or second phase, basically. But honestly, even just with more recent things, it's probably one of the better fight scenes. Like major fight
Right.
scenes within a movie, within the MCU. Honestly, it was done. I just thought it was done really well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think honestly, at the end, um, you know, basically getting him to stop,
Hmm.
from basically killing Abomination is pretty powerful just in and of itself.
Yeah.
Um, and again, just going back to showing Bruce Banner that he has at least some control over
Hmm.
his powers.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you about the fight scene being, it's so good and it's clear. That's the thing.
It
There's
is.
clarity.
It
There's
is
not a
real
lot
clear.
of weird
Yeah.
jump cuts. There's not nothing that confuses you. You know what's happening. which I think some directors of action need to remember that. Like you can show action and show it clearly and not make us, dizzy or whatever. So but I thought that was my number 2. Number 1 for me was the college campus fight battle
Mm.
scene. Um I think that encapsulates Bruce's whole existence, which is, he just all he wants to do. He was literally like, "I'm just going to leave town. I'm out of here." And they just like literally in the comics, he's like, "Leave me alone. Just leave me alone." And Ross just won't leave him alone. And he to the point where he's going to endanger an entire college campus with military weapons to get this guy. And not only that, he empowers a dude with some like sort of super soldier serum and just like and sends this guy out into the meat grinder to get wrecked. Like like it's just true.
That's true. That is true. It's so true.
Blonsky goes out there and he's like, oh, that's all you got, and just gets smashed, absolutely
Oh man,
smashed. And but it's a very well constructed series of like set pieces to make one big scene that really kind of
it was.
underscores that, yeah, he's a menace for people messing with him, but he can control himself, right? And I love the fact that Liv Tyler's Betty Ross kind of stood in the pocket and like got him to calm. There's a lot of good stuff in there, and it really revealed to me Thunderbolt Ross's character, and I'm very curious if they're going to follow this through to the Captain America 4, just because in that moment he's so hell bent on getting Bruce, getting the Hulk, that he doesn't just endanger other people, he endangers his own daughter, knowing she's on the field. A lot of stuff is happening, pushing the story forward, and good writing and good direction. Like Louis Leterrier did his thing in this. I think he directed the hell out of this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was not a bad movie.
No, I think there was a lot of good understanding of action, good understanding of pace, of tying together the action scenes to actual character moments, to the building of characters. That's all I want. I don't mind tons of action. It just has to make sense within the context of the story, and I want the characters to move forward. That's all. Um, Speaking of characters, what was your standout performance? Who gave the best performance in your opinion?
I mean, I want to say everyone did really well. Like that's just me as a person, but like because everyone can act better than me. But um, I really think Ed Norton did a good job playing Bruce Banner. It's hard to not feel like it's almost a cop out to pick him as the lead actor in the entire movie, but I think he did a really good job again, like you said, encapsulating who Bruce Banner is, um, and he played him well. I mean, I can't think of his name right now. This you can tell me the Thunderbolt
Ruffalo.
Ross.
William Hurt. William Hurt. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he does a great job too of
Hmm.
being, you know, that hardo military guy who clearly doesn't care about his daughter, even though he does. Um, but yeah, I think that's who I would go with. I really think everyone did a pretty decent job. There wasn't really anyone who I felt like was like super lacking.
I think maybe the Brazilian bullies. I don't know. Maybe the Brazilian bullies. Um, yeah, so for me, standout performance is this Edward Norton. This was a
Yeah,
movie built for him to exhibit his acting chops, and he did. I mean, he did it. He did everything. Um, Capture the humanity of Bruce Banner, which is carried over to Ruffalo's performance. By the way, he takes many cues from Edward Norton's, his performance, just for continuity's sake. But there's a certain, I call it an all shucks version, like kind of performance where he's real humble and just kind of unassuming until he's not, right. that's a little bit of the Hulk. So he internalizes a bit of Hulk in his persona, which is weird to me because not weird, but it's telling to me that he thinks the Hulk is a different person. He doesn't see Hulk as him, just like but different parts of him that come to the front. But you sort of see it in him and the way he plays his character. He can be very assertive. He can be like, "Shut up! This is what we're gonna do." He can do that too, but he's also caring, and he wants what's best for other people. He wants to be a hero, you know. So, and I think there are many scenes where you actually see that play out, um, and also that he's I said resourceful, determined, but he has a sense of longing, not just for Betty, but for normality, for a return to a life he knew before that he knows he can never have. And there's always a little bit of that in his performance as Bruce Banner. And I thought he was excellent. And there's a lot of great hell. Tim Roth is doing his thing. I love Tim Roth in this. I love William Hurt in this. I love Liv Tyler in this. She's great for the little bit that they're giving her to do. She's great. So the only person I'm just like, was Ty Burrell, but that's because he didn't really have a character. He was,
No.
that's it. Yeah, I thought Norton was on point. I do want to interject here for what I call the Stan Lee watch. Every MCU film, up to a certain one, of course, has a Stan Lee cameo. So of course we had to look out for Stan. Stan, the man, giving a call back to the old, like I didn't even remember that these things were real. Do you remember Guarana energy drinks? You remember people drinking those back in
Mm,
the day?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was like, damn, I forgot about those things.
I remember the brand. There was a brand called Balls with a
Yeah,
Z instead of an S, right?
yeah,
Or WLZ. I forget, but
something
something.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a thing back then. And so he,
Yep.
Stan drinking it. I wish they had shown him hulking out. That'd have been amazing. That was really
Yeah.
cool. Um, so what about that ending? This is the part we say that ending though. Question mark. Was it a Marvel ending? Did this end like a Marvel movie should end, or does end, or stereotypically has ended? What did you think?
Um, Technically not really, at least kind of like what we talked a little bit before we started recording, kind of not
Hmm.
as of more recent movies, not so much. I mean, again, we see Bruce um, in British Columbia, I believe, kind of where he's now after the aftermath of everything, and he's actually come to grips with again being able to control his powers a little bit better, and actually uh, encourages them almost at this point, right? Like
Hmm.
you see that he that 0 days without being a
Yes,
Hulk or
yes,
whatever it
yes.
is, right? Where before in the beginning of the movie where it was a pretty long streak, I forget what number it was, but um, he pretty much wants it to happen. I guess he's trying to test himself too to see how he can do
Yeah,
um, with things.
that part laying the groundwork for what we would see later on in Avengers when Ruffalo comes back as Bruce Banner. Um, it's it's in my head canon he was at the same cabin that Wanda was at after WandaVision. It looks exactly the same. It could have been the same one.
Could be.
But yeah, was this a Marvel ending? And I'm thinking about the climax of the movie, which is basically that final battle. No, it wasn't, but it was for phase one. Here's the thing: phase one is a lot more. One thing I've noticed is these movies are a lot more intimate in the sense that it's one character dealing with one bad guy, or a couple bad guys, but it's really just smaller stories, smaller stakes. Things aren't like, the world's not in danger or anything like that. This is just personal demons essentially that they're battling. And so it is a Marvel Phase 1 ending because he's fighting his mirror image, and he's also fighting his nature, his desire to smash until the things are smithereens. And bringing that back and bringing control. And so, to your point about the ending where he's in the cabin, yes, he is learning to master himself, which is the whole point, I think, of the Hulk. I kind of had an interaction with someone on threads about this, which was what he didn't like the movie. He said it didn't really show the real Hulk or whatever, the comics accurate Hulk. And I was like, no, it's pretty comics accurate because okay, yes, you wouldn't like me when I get angry. Yeah, we know the catchphrase and whatever. But there are physical aspects of anger that are present in other emotions, in other reactions, right? And so to me, this was all an allegory of a man consumed by extreme emotion and learning to master himself and to control it, because there's nothing wrong with anger. There's only a problem with anger that's uncontrolled. And when you don't get your emotions in check and direct them in a good way, you have a problem. So we see that, of course, later on in Avengers. The credit scene, we get a Tony Stark appearance, and or a Tony Snark, I'd say, because he had some choice words for Thunderbolt Ross. I would say. uh, uh, was it a good credit scene, even though it wasn't a credit scene?
Yeah, I mean, again, it continues to lay the groundwork for what we basically were to see in the future. I mean, the biggest takeaway from that is that he basically says that Stark tells Ross that he's looking to put together a team, basically,
Hmm.
and obviously that's the Avengers. Um, that's essentially the biggest takeaway. Uh, I mean, at the point, I didn't have any comics knowledge at the time, so some people might have been able to figure it out, but I figured most people probably were like,
Yeah,
"Sure, I
cool.
guess,"
Yeah.
right?
Who else? All right, you got Hulk, you got Iron Man. Who else is going to do this?
Right. Um, but yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was a bad one in comparison to. I mean, now we've got multiple
Yeah,
post-credit scenes, some of which are usually just like a fun one, and then something that potentially means something in the future.
right. Well, they were really kind of trying out the whole stinger ending, um, to see if they could drum up, interest as the movies progress. And obviously, they were on the right track with this one. Bringing Tony Stark in, I mean, that's a genius level move. People already loved, Iron Man anyway. They want to see more connection, and they were really like, I think they were smart enough to start priming us for expecting these things. So by the time Avengers rolls around, everybody knows, they know the deal. I think it's a really good scene. I think it's a smart scene, and I think it's super relevant. It's not a throwaway. And it really
No.
it got me hyped. I knew what it was about, so I was like, hell yeah, let's go. So all that being said, everything we've talked about, all that, it's time for a rating, and I rate them out of 6 Infinity Stones. How would you rate this out of 6 Infinity Stones? Are you going to complete the gauntlet? Or are you still just searching for that first stone to put into the gauntlet?
No, we're not going to go on either end, and it's going to sound bad. Like three, I'm going with 3 out of 6, and three sounds bad, but it's really not, right? Like as far as I'm concerned, six is like clearly the best movie
Hmm.
within the MCU, or one of the best, right?
Right.
Three is right around the middle. I mean, it's not a bad movie, I don't think whatsoever, um, based on all the things that we've already said earlier. And it's not the worst. I don't consider it to be the worst
Right.
MCU film or project that's been done so far, in my opinion. Um, it's watchable, right? Like it's good. It completes what it needs to do,
Hmm.
and you can get it done in. I want to say it was less than 2 hours too, so it's not
Yeah.
it's not a bad movie. Um, you know, I would recommend it to someone, especially if you haven't watched it in a long time. You might, like you said earlier in the podcast, might be
Right.
refreshing to your eyes to rewatch this and give it a second thought.
Yeah. I agree. I'm gonna go one more. I'm like Thanos. I'm like Thanos coming to Earth. Like I got or not coming to Earth, going to what is the planet where he's got to fight Stark and everything? I got I got 4 of them. I need
Ah,
2 more. So
yeah.
I'm going definitely going 4, and I'm ready to punch Tony Stark in the face. Looking for that time stone. 4 out of 6, man. Hey, I enjoyed the hell out of it. Like I enjoyed it enough. I was like, man, I've been too hard on this movie. There's no way this movie is good. Like, I really, really had a great time with it. I popped off a few times because just cool stuff was happening, like the performances. I thought the filmmaking was like it. It was between competent to like inspired. So I never felt like there was weird choices. I didn't feel like there was like strange angles or anything like that. No, kept me engaged and I understood everyone's motivations. I was just engaged. I liked this movie and I would highly recommend it. Like if you're, you know, wanting to rewatch the MCU, cool. If you haven't watched the MCU, watch this movie. You're going to get a lot of out of it. It's very fun. So, all that being said, that's our entire, look at the Incredible Hulk. But what did you guys think about it? What did you think about what we had to say? Get down to the comment section, leave your thoughts there. Of course, you can always hit me up, supernotfunnyshow@gmail.com, blurred_force1 on Instagram and threads, super_not_funny show on TikTok. And I want y'all to all thank our guest, Joe, for coming on and talking about this. Joe, you want to tell them a little bit about your channel, where they can reach you on social media?
Yep. Like Mo said earlier, my channel is Muscles in the Multiverse. I am on YouTube, Instagram, and Threads, all at Muscles in the Multiverse, spelled out exactly how it's supposed to be spelled out. Um, yeah, I mean, my channel is basically all related to Marvel stuff. And I would say, well, we've delved into many different things at this point, but mostly is relating what's happening in the MCU with certain characters and trying to go through their comic book history and kind of bring to light what we might see or what we will see on screen.
Yeah, you guys should go check his content out. He's definitely doing some breakdowns. Talking about the various projects, some comics lore. If y'all need to get up on it, and you do, so go show Joe some love. So thanks for joining us on the Marvel Infinity Rewatch podcast. Come back for the next episode. You know what it's gonna be. Dun dun dun. Iron Man 2. Uh, I can't wait to dive into that one. So until then, I've been Mo, your comedy. I can't talk. One, two, three. Until then, I've been Mo, your comedy extraordinaire on all things pop culture, and I'll see you guys on the other side of the thread. Peace.